Welcome to the Pro Aging Podcast. I'm Steve Gurney, founder of Positive Aging Sourcebook. We're excited that you can join us for our interactive discussions with pioneers and thought leaders on a wide variety of topics related to aging and longevity. Today, we feature a live and interactive conversation with a panel of aging life care managers. We'll get to know these professionals and learn how they help clients find solutions. This month, we feature Allyson Stanton of Stanton Aging Solutions, Megan Descutner with Golden Pond Elder Care Strategies, and Sharon Dickol of the Option Group. So let's jump into the conversation. All right, well, Allyson, you're on my left here, so I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Sharon and Megan. Allyson, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to become an aging life care manager.
Okay, hi everybody. Thank you, Steve and Tribute for hosting, and it's nice to be here with Sharon and Megan today. So my name's Allyson Stanton. I have been a social worker in healthcare and gerontology for 25 years. And even prior to that, where I grew up in North Jersey, I was a home health aide for a VNA and a candy striper and things that I don't even think we call that anymore. But so just kind of always had this obsession with geriatrics and working with seniors and stuff. I started off in nursing school and I switched to social work, and I've just been boots on the ground for pretty much my whole career in CCRCs, assisted livings, Alzheimer's communities, and SNFs and rehabs. And about 4 years ago, I started to do care management kind of part-time. So I was still working 32 hours at a local CCRC. And it just got to the point where I was growing, doing Tuesdays and then weekends and evenings. So I started my own business about 1.5 years ago. It's Stanton Aging Solutions. And I guess my favorite part of it is advocating for the client 100%, not representing an organization or a community or having a boss or anything. So being able to give them a voice all the time is the best.
I love it. No, that's great. And one of the really neat things about this panel is Allyson is in Maryland. Sharon, our next panel member, is in Delaware, and Megan is in Virginia. You know, it doesn't always work out this way, but I try to sort of geographically separate our panel members. So, so Sharon, tell us a little about your journey and how you became and where you are with as an aging life care manager.
Okay, well, thanks, Steve, for the invitation. I'm really delighted to be here and to meet the other care managers and our sponsors. My journey probably began in the 1980s, hence the gray hair. But I actually started out working with older adults with disabilities. And one of my first roles was with an independent living center in Philadelphia. And I did that for several years, and I eventually became manager of that program. And then my husband had the audacity to be transferred, and we went to Georgia. And we raised our children there. And I eventually became director for the Area Agency on Aging in coastal Georgia. So I really had an opportunity to expand my knowledge, provide services in a 9-county area. And at that time, I went back to school and I got my master's certificate in geriatric care management. And one of my first tasks was to actually help victims of Hurricane Katrina who had relocated to Georgia. Then we went back to Delaware. In 2009, I worked for a nonprofit for 4 years and decided that I really loved the direct contact work. So I started my own company, AgeWise Solutions. And AgeWise, excuse me. Sorry. AgeWise Solutions has been operating or was operating starting in 2013. And just this year, in preparation for my retirement, I have sold my company to the Option Group. So now via the Option Group, we continue to provide services throughout Delaware.
Great. Excellent. And actually, Ellen Platt of the Option Group was on our first ever discussion that we did with the aging life care managers. So, so this is really interesting. And now the other thing, and we're going to hear with Megan's story, is that you're going to see that all three of these operations in the past that they've taken are a little bit different. And Megan, I love hearing your story as well. Tell us a little bit about what led you to become a care manager and your organization.
Well, my background that prepared me for being a care manager is a combination of personal experience, education, and work experience. So when I was ready to go to college, my dad said 4 years, that's it. And I didn't know what I wanted to major in. And I just decided that there's nothing more interesting than people. And so I chose nursing, the science and the people. And so for all these years, that has really been true. So every day you learn something new. When I was working in a hospital, I decided to go to graduate school with all my friends. Their momentum had me all excited. And at the point when I graduated, my grandparents went into a continuing care retirement community. My grandmother was blind with macular degeneration, and my grandfather was a retired physician, and he wanted to be able to visit whether they had a medical crisis or not. So I was the only one they would listen to when it came time for care management interventions. So before I knew there was a career, I was doing care management. And over time, several of my older relatives that I adored developed dementia. So just through the years and my work experience, it just all prepared me for the same path. And my goal has always been personalized care for our clients and peace of mind for their families. So we have a group there's 7 of us now, and we want to stay at a size where we can always provide that personalized care and that peace of mind. So over the last 11 years, we've done that. And 11 years ago, I started the company, and then shortly thereafter, a friend said, will you buy my company too? So we merged a longtime company from Virginia into ours.
Yeah, and that business that you merged with was founded by one of my friends, Barbara Payne,
right,
who I'm still connected with on Facebook. So she'll be really glad. I'll let her know that I gave her a shout out on this discussion.
That's great.
Because, to Sharon's point about retirement, I mean, it's hard to believe how, I still think of aging life care and geriatric care management as this new profession, but we've got this generation of the pioneers that are now thinking about retirement. And I think it's wonderful that, there's enough providers in the market where, Sharon, you're able to sort of pass on your legacy, or the way Barbara did as well. I think that's a huge benefit. So, but boy, what a diverse and interesting panel we've got this month. So let's jump into round 2, but I'm going to remind our audience that you got a great platform here with aging life care managers to sort of throw out some scenarios or some ideas or some challenges that you might be faced with. But I'll just randomly sort of, you guys can jump on as you think, but what are some things that we should be thinking about? What are some things that you're observing in the marketplace? What are some things you'd like to share with our audience that's here today and that's also listening to this as a recording? Feel free to jump in and go first.
I'll talk.
Oh, go ahead, Sharon, please.
Okay. I've noticed an uptick in service requests lately. I think as we're coming out of this pandemic, families are opening up to the idea of looking for outside support for their loved one, especially when it comes to finding long-term care placement. I've had a lot of requests in the last 4 to 6 weeks of families just saying, can you help me find the right place for my loved one? And I've just noticed that as a very recent thing, very recent phenomenon. I don't know if the others have seen that as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I've noticed in conversations with providers, whether it be assisted living, home care, aging life care, I feel like the fact that we were all quarantined and isolated and sort of cooped up, I'm beginning to sort of feel like we're feeling the pains of that, where it's like, okay, time to make some solutions or time to look into some solutions. And so that may be what you're referencing. Are you all seeing something similar, Allyson and Megan?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sharon. I think that people were afraid to move and make change. And we're talking about a very resilient population. So people did extremely well, even though we did see a lot of despair and a lot of decline. A lot of people did pull through it and, use their family as resources and, we're able to tap into some support. But I think now that we feel safer, or they've been dealing with it for a year and a half, and they uncovered a decline and things that now they're willing to admit is going on. They are looking for help. And I think a lot of us are probably busier than ever. And I'm glad for all of us, and that just there are so many places and that there's resources for people. I think families are tired. I mean, caregiving is an epidemic, and it's emotionally, financially, and physically draining. And I think they're kind of saying enough is enough. It's time to get some help.
Yeah, I agree. We're just getting a tsunami of referrals and requests. And in terms of the placement, we've seen it all along throughout the pandemic, and we're really lucky to work with some really great communities. But it's been, if they had COVID in the building or if they'd had it for the last month, they couldn't admit anyone. So it's been very specific about what you could or couldn't do. And now we're seeing a lot of out-of-state people. So family here saying, I've got to bring my mom here so I can really watch over her, because Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, they're just too far. So whereas before, family might have been okay, because, letting them stay where they were because they could get down there and it was their loved one's wish. Now they're just saying, Mom, you've got to come near me so I can really watch over you.
Oh man. Well, and I'm glad that you talked about out of state, because I did glance at our chat, and I'm thrilled. We're primarily mid-Atlantic, but I'm thrilled that we have people from South Dakota and Minnesota in our audience today. It's interesting how it's so much easier to sort of share these resources because they're online now, and that's really cool. I also glanced at my email, and I saw that I got an email from somebody in the audience. They didn't want to use the chat and the Q&A, and they wanted you guys to just share some of they're having some challenges with their siblings in terms of, I'm sort of quoting this here. Seems like they're having some disagreements on what the path for mom should be. They're considering hiring an aging life care manager, which I highly recommend when you're in those situations. But, maybe you guys could give some words of wisdom to folks that are out there and you may have a sibling that has a varying views of opinion on what the next steps are for mom and dad. I find that this is one that racks many families' brains.
In my experience, it's a very common situation. And the best thing I can offer is to bring in a care manager, because oftentimes the siblings will listen to an impartial third person that has expertise in the area. And at least you have a starting point for a conversation. You get a report, you've had a conversation, you get a report summarizing what went on in that conversation, the assessment, and then recommendations. And so there's a starting point for everyone to talk. And that's a helpful place to be.
I think to always remember, it's about the parents. It's not about you, right? And it's about where the parents are now. In order for any of us to make necessary informed decisions, we have to be present, right? So not where mom was a year ago, not where I want mom to be in a year and a half, but where are mom and dad now? And until I can go to that place and embrace it fully, only then can I make the best informed decision. And please give them a voice, talk to them. And remember, you all have a common goal, right? You love them, you want the best care for them. What's the goal and objective here? there are ways to meet it.
No,
I think it's good too when siblings are talking, even if they're disagreeing, because so long as you're all talking, you're kind of on the same, you're on the same journey. You're together. And I think it's when siblings don't get involved that the burden ends up being on maybe one or two of you, and that becomes more difficult to manage. And I always like to tell my families, look, you don't all have to do everything, but find a task that suits you. If you're an out-of-state child, maybe you can help with the bill paying, which a lot of that is now done online. If you're a local child to the parent, maybe you can do the majority of the appointments or scheduling things. So it's really important to find out what family members prefer to do and what they're available to do, and then to work with them to find a strategy that works for the parents, as Allyson said, make them the focus, and then work towards a common goal.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, all three of you in one way or another, but is the thing that I always like when on these aging life care discussions is the fact that even though the children are calling you and they might even be paying you, your client is the older adult. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having that check and balance basically can be super helpful to families, because I think many times I see when I'm talking to siblings, they lose sight of the fact they're in it for them, not intentionally, but it's sort of refocusing that this is all about what your mom wants. She's an adult, and what's best for her. I want to thank somebody in the audience. I neglected to share that this month is National Aging Life Care Month. Okay, so what I'm going to do is drop into chat the link on the national website for everybody to get more information on National Aging Life Care Month. And thank you to the anonymous attendee who shared that with me.
It's a care manager, I bet.
Yeah, it's probably. I'm pretty sure it is. You know what's crazy though? I wish we need to pick a different month than May. May is Older Americans Month, National Life Care. I think everybody is. There's so many different initiatives in the month of May. Okay, good question here, Susan Infield. She says, recently I had a retirement community defer sharing with me that a resident had been transferred to a medical facility. How does HIPAA apply or not apply to this information shared with outsiders in this case? And Susan, I'm not sure what Susan's role is, but I think it oftentimes, whether it's a client or a loved one, when you hear all of a sudden that something was done and nobody communicated with you, any insights on that? And I imagine there's value in having an aging life care manager in your back pocket for situations like this.
Was it a family member wasn't informed?
I'm not sure, Susan, if you want to elaborate on your relationship with the person, but I guess it's a good topic, because I've heard this happen so many times, that whether it be a family member or not a family member, but somebody who I had advocated for in the past. Okay. So somebody she advocated for in the past, and she's a registered nurse. Okay, great. But it's a good topic on communication with communities and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So Susan is a friend of mine and in Northern Virginia, and she's a parish nurse, so she's a care manager. And what I'm finding in Northern Virginia as well, and we deal with some of the same hospitals, is that the communication is much more difficult than it ever has been before. And it's very unpredictable. Sometimes you get really good communication, and sometimes they won't talk to you, or the communication that's been provided gets totally lost somewhere, and you have an ER physician who is making up stuff to decide how they're going to evaluate and treat someone, and it's nothing close to what the person was sent there for, even knowing that there was multiple communication going forward about what the problem was. And I don't know I don't know the reason, and I don't know the answer, except that every single case is a little bit different and has to be followed up in each situation, because the standards that you used to expect to be in place, they're just not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's causing that.
Yeah, you got to think, like, I think everybody's stretched to the limits, and then there's all these policies and procedures that healthcare institutions have to abide by. And I think, one of the things, as I sort of think about this one, Susan, is if there's a way to go back and do a recap with the players involved in a very polite way. I oftentimes find if we're upset, but if we sort of let that go, it's sort of like, hey, look, I know I'm going to have clients in this hospital here in the future, and I want to avoid that. What can I do to make your life easier? Trying to help the care manager in the hospital, or whoever your liaison is in the hospital. Let's see. Oh, we're getting some more questions that I think are really pretty cool here. This one, David says, it's amazing to me to witness families battling over money instead of mom and dad's well-being. These situations want to make me run. How do you handle these? Also just on the broader topic of talking about money, do you guys have any solutions for that in terms of how you work with your clients?
I just did a webinar on this the other day, and this is for every factor, and I know the ladies here agree with this, is have the discussions early.
Absolutely.
Less than 37% of Americans have advanced directives, POA, trust, whatever, estate planning in place. That's a disgusting number. Less than half of the country, much less. Talk, please talk. It's not about age, it's not about getting old, but having these necessary conversations. If something happens, what are your goals? What is the financial situation? What do you want me to do with your finances? Just start talking. But I'm sure we've seen it. I had a case this morning I'm working on. I had to refer them to an attorney. It was a second marriage, and kids from the one marriage are coming in and wanting money for one spouse, and the other children are worried about their own mother. And it's terrible. And they're in their 90s, and guess what? They never talked about it. So here we are.
It's a problem. I think a lot of times people don't know how to begin the conversation of money. Maybe, discussing money was never done in the past. And so approaching a parent who's never wanted to discuss it can be intimidating. So a lot of times, sometimes you have to, say, I heard about Harry down the street, and I was really sorry to hear that, they ran into difficulties when his wife had to go into a nursing home. How do you want to handle that? What would you like me to do if that were to impact our family in the same way? And sometimes you have to help them find the tools to begin that conversation, giving them details like what Allyson just pointed out, the fact that very few people have this discussion and how important it is, can really go a long way to help families address money issues.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of situations recently where the clients were not very able to handle their own finances. Their family wasn't either available or willing. And so we referred them to a financial advisor, an independent financial advisor that could really be a fiduciary to them. and also a bill payer. She's actually a CPA, but she has a bill paying service. And some of these other folks are incredibly helpful when it comes to protecting the individuals, our clients, and also in helping the families by just providing that expertise so that everyone knows what they need to know.
I'm dropping into chat our recent discussion with daily money managers, which is another profession that we are trying to spotlight on a monthly basis. And that can yes. be helpful. These are some good tips. I think that this will be helpful for folks. So here's a comment that I really like, is because I think engagement in especially people that are homebound is super important. And this question says, how often do you see or notice family members visiting elderly loved ones in home care settings, playing music or singing their favorite songs, not in group settings, but one-on-one? I'm sure this audience member is curious about that, but also just what are some of the ways that you can help your clients be more engaged when they are in these isolating situations?
All starts with their life story, right, guys? Like getting to know them, that the person's still there, right? No matter what diagnosis, no matter what stage they're in any disease process, where are they at? What can they still have success in? And getting to know them and collecting that life story, and then definitely tapping into that and being where they are and ensuring success. I mean, definitely music, right? Art therapy, taking to museum as things are starting to open up. But that concierge connection engagement is amazing.
Mm-hmm. There are all kinds of activities that we can help families put into their toolbox. I had a woman who used to enjoy the outdoors. She really couldn't get outside much. And so we brought the outdoors in with an indoor garden. And she grew the herbs that she loved. And when it came time to preparing dinner, she would use those herbs when she made the salad, because that was something she could still do. So we always look for ways that build on an individual's interests and their passions. So sometimes it's a photo album, it could be doing a puzzle together. Coloring is a great stress reliever, and it's a great way to engage with younger family members as well. So there's all kinds of
gotten a lot better, Steve. And don't you guys think, with people tapping into engagement and ensuring success? And even home health agencies are doing a much better job of having purposeful visits, purposeful engagement. I think we've come a long way with that.
Yeah, I do. And on the topic of music, we're going to try to do some programs that spotlight some of the creative ways to utilize music, because it is a common theme in many people's lives, not everybody. And that's, to Allyson's point, and one of the values of having an aging life care manager is objectively listening to the older adult, getting to know them, and then going into your all's toolbox to find out, hey, here's some purposeful connections. I think this also speaks to the objective nature, because for those of us who have heard Dad's stories about the war, year after year after year, we drown this out. When in reality, there's people out there that would love to that are history buffs, and they would just love to hear these stories. They're not related to Dad because we've all heard them, but that's another reason for aging life care connections.
It can be very creative.
Okay, let's see here. Looks like we've got a question here from Jim, who says, I have a situation in which the husband, 93, is experiencing ongoing issues from falls. His wife, 87, is in denial as to their proper modifications being made and bringing professional help to the situation. The children have no knowledge of the finances or directives, and the wife refuses to discuss the situation. you have any strategies that have worked for getting someone to agree to speak to an aging life care manager or open up about finances or directives? Boy, hey, that's well, first off, Jim, we're going to make sure that you have all 3 emails of our care managers, because there might be a more ongoing conversation here. But on the topic of denial, any suggestions that we could throw out to Jim to sort of get that first conversation going with you all?
Denial is one of the number one coping mechanisms for a reason, right? I mean, and sometimes denial can be good, but I think the tools that we have and these necessary discussions and getting somebody to open up is like partnering with them, right? Like giving them a voice and really listening to them. Why are they hesitant to disclose finances? Do they not trust their son? Is there a history of something there? I think, and it's not to toot me because I don't even know where he lives, but honestly, any care manager I'm happy to refer you to. You really should call one on a phone and talk to them. Most of us give free consultations. Happy to direct you to one to talk to. We tend to be able to go into the homes, or you can come to our office if we want. And we tend to break down the barriers and really talk to this person that we work for them, we represent them. They tend to open up. I don't know. What do you ladies want to say?
I agree with you. I think that what we're really good at is engaging with people. And I think that oftentimes the denial is that they believe that the first time they let somebody in, that's a chink in their armor, and they're going to have to give over control, that it's going to be a slow roll giving up control. And in some ways it's true, but it's truly bringing in help. And like you said, being listened to so that their wishes can be followed. Yeah. It doesn't mean that they lose choice. It just means they get a little help.
I think it's also important when you do find denial and it's getting in the way of a quality of life, remind the individuals, this is a slow process sometimes. It can't all be done at once. And if you're suggesting, or if somebody in the family is suggesting major changes, might be helpful to break it down into smaller steps. Yeah. And then that way you're more likely to get buy-in from the reluctant participant in the discussion. And then help them to see that change isn't the end of the world, that it can be successful. And one small change can lead to another. And so sometimes we just have to step back and take it slow.
And I think, yeah, and to add on that, I think it's great is that, like, when you talk to the client or this person that you're going to be talking to, his mother, about her goals. So if her goals are to age in place and she thinks Medicare is going to pay for it, right? Our job is to listen to her, and that's her goal. Well, we're going to help you meet that. But Medicare only pays for skilled care, not custodial. 24-hour care could be $20,000 a month. Assisted living is whatever, 6 to 10, right? If you're informing her and educating her, then she has the right to make informed decisions. So she might be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I better start looking at my finances. And yeah, maybe I can age in place, or, I don't know. But I think, again, it all goes back to just talking.
Great words of wisdom there. Couple questions here, and guys, keep them flowing. We've got about 10 minutes before it's 1 o'clock. Janina, who's with Grand Oaks, says, I can tell you that in assisted living in Washington, D.C., and particularly Grand Oaks, we adhere to confidentiality versus HIPAA. Aging life care managers are a partner in care, and we would absolutely divulge this information. So that's reflecting on the earlier question about HIPAA. And then I love this one. We got Daniel Richards on the call, and Daniel says, I've been an RSC, I'm not sure what that stands for nearly 17 years. How can I start my own care management business? Any words of wisdom for Daniel?
Join ALCA, right? Aging Life Care Association, and they'll help you get started.
Yeah, and I imagine all three of you talk to people who are thinking about starting a business, correct?
Yeah, he can call me or email me.
Okay.
I would suggest, for anyone who's interested in this kind of work, go to the Aging Life Care website at aginglifecare.org, search for a care manager in your area, and ask for a conversation. Find out more about what it takes and what the opportunities are in your particular area.
Yeah, I think that is a very wise decision there, Sharon, is that I think there's value also in talking to care managers outside of the area. But I think those local care managers are going to have an understanding of that specific market. And it might even be worthwhile to contact 2 or 3 and sort of get several different perspectives. The interesting thing about the aging life care profession, when I started Sourcebook 32 years ago, there was just a handful of what we call geriatric care managers. And as new ones came to the market, they were very sort of protective of their territory, I found. It was sort of like, oh yeah. But what I found is as more care managers came to the marketplace, more business was created for everybody because it's the awareness of this is a profession. I remember when I used to go to barbecues and nobody knew what an aging life care manager. Now they're coming up to me saying, oh, I've been working with an aging life care manager. And that means more business for everybody.
I think there's been a lot of, I'm sorry, Allyson. I just wanted to say, I think there has been a lot of progress over the years and more people are aware. But just yesterday, I had a provider tell me, I've been in this business for many years. I've never heard of people like you. Yeah. There's still people who don't know who we are or what we do. So the education continues. Programs like yours, Steve, really help to spread the word. So we appreciate that. And we'll continue to have to grow the profession. I know we rely on one another. I couldn't do this work without the supportive care managers in other places because my clients may want to move to another part of the country, or they want to find out about a facility outside of the state of Delaware. And so I go to my colleagues to say, what can you recommend in this area or in your area?
Yeah. I think it's sad that it's for the families. I think it's nice that, other professionals use us and know about us, but it's just so many people struggling. Forget Maryland, right? Like all over the country that have no idea that care managers are out there and exist and what they're able to do. And sometimes in a very short amount of time that people are alone going through this stuff it's sad.
Here's another good question from Deb Mariner. On the topic of sibling issues with their aging parent, we have a situation where an APS, which is Adult Protective Services worker involved, seems to be aligned with the daughter who is exploiting the parent. Oh boy, that's bad. Have you ever needed to appeal to an APS worker's supervisor to review a situation and get involved? Man, really, really good question and heartbreaking too, Deb. Anybody, have you had anything happen similar to that?
I've had several APS cases that I've worked on, none like that, but definitely where a family member wasn't happy with decisions being made by APS. And it was not an easy situation. And unfortunately, it was never really resolved. And the older adult passed away from natural causes. So it's always tough when APS is involved and every case is different. It's hard to comment. I couldn't comment on that one. Can you, ladies? Have you seen anything like that?
No, but any exploitation, abuse, or neglect, right, could be maybe reported to a state level or a certain organization or seek counsel, right? Because ultimately we need to stop that exploitation first and foremost.
I would bring an attorney in. We deal with attorneys on probably 70% of our cases, not because they're all contentious, but just because it's so helpful to have an attorney as part of the team.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Susan Infield, who asked a previous question, is chiming in. My experiences with APS have been hopeless. The what would be a great discussion for us is to bring an APS worker on. And so if anybody has a good connection with APS and a staff member that might be willing to come on one of our discussions, I think that would be a fascinating discussion. And I also, my hunch is that most people go into the profession with good intentions, but I think the system sometimes, is working the system is the challenge. It's sort of like, I got a pile of cases, I got to get this one off my desk. And you sort of, without even realizing it, you align with a daughter just to shut the door, and you're not doing it in a proper way. I'm glad you all brought up attorneys, because I'd love to hear how you all work with elder law attorneys or guardian cases. Like, how do you interact with the legal profession together, but then also maybe even broadening that to some of the other professions that you seem to align with?
Well, we frequently have clients who either haven't done their estate planning and therefore don't have a power of attorney to rely on. So many times when we're brought into a case, they think they're bringing us in really early, but in a few months, things really start going downhill, whether it's medically or cognitively. So we really like to have a power of attorney in place that we can rely on if there's a problem with the client. And so we bring attorneys in for that. Sometimes someone just has really old documents and they need to be updated. When documents need to be utilized and they go to the bank, if they're too old, the bank won't accept them. So we encourage people to get their documents reviewed. And, through COVID, DNRs and advanced directives and some of those issues, whether somebody wanted to be intubated or not, kind of changed around. It was a different kind of dynamic with COVID and intubation. So there's been a lot of rethinking of different things and kind of evaluating documents from that standpoint. And just like we were talking about, when there's a concern about whether someone is being represented or abused well by their family, if you have a power of attorney or an executor, it could be an elder law attorney rather than a child, when that is a better choice. So in many different instances, we encourage at least a consultation with an attorney, an elder law attorney.
Great.
Absolutely.
It's not uncommon. I've had to testify in guardianship cases. Sometimes, we're called upon to give our impressions or assessments of what's going on in the home. In one situation, a judge asked that I remain as a consultant to the child and his co-guardian, so that if there were any issues, that they could come to me and we could figure out a solution to whatever the challenge was. So our roles can take us in many places. I work with financial advisors as well, who are concerned about decline in their clients, and they want to know what they can do to best support them as well.
No, that's great. This comes up on a lot of these discussions, because in the audience, we have a lot of healthcare providers that love to network with you all. And for obvious reasons, because they want you to know about their services so you can refer your clients. Any sort of preferences that you are do's and don'ts when sort of reaching out to communicate with you about the various services that are out there? That's a scary question. I know.
Scary laugh. Sorry. No, I don't know. I think the ones that know me, and I'm sure many are on here, know that I'm pretty open, honest, transparent. Just reach out. If I don't have the time, I'm going to tell you, we'll schedule something. I think email is probably the best way to initially reach out, and then please follow up, because whether it's me or Sharon, Megan, or all the other we're busy. We are. I'm not saying nobody else is, but I'm kind of on my own as a solo practitioner, and it is kind of a 24/7 job. So if we don't get back to you, just go ahead and reach out again.
Great. And just for these three, I will be sharing their contact information. So if you wanted to reach out to them after this discussion, but as Allyson said, they're busy. So they'll tell you. Let's see, Susan, you got some great questions today. Are there elder law attorneys available through the health department? Many people are wary of the expenses. Yeah. I'm going to make sure to share our discussions with elder law attorneys with everybody. I'll try to drop them into the chat, but if I can't get that done, I'll make sure to just email it in the follow-up. This is a topic that comes up every time with the elder law attorneys, but it actually comes up with the aging life care managers. Most counties do have a legal services area.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a quote unquote elder law attorney, but you can probably get some legal advice in that area. But the other thing that I found that was interesting in our elder law discussions is most elder law attorneys, most aging life care managers will try to work within your budget to economically get you through the challenge that you're faced with. And maybe it's just giving you some free advice. Maybe it's sort of like, look, we're going to do this part of your legal plan to protect you instead of a full-blown, legal plan. And curious, are you guys pretty creative when you talk to clients and they may say, geez, I don't know if I can afford that, in terms of how you can support them?
I do. I mean, whenever I've got a client who's reluctant due to the cost, I'll refer them. In Delaware, there are forms you can get online from the Department of Health and Social Services for advanced directives. Those can be downloaded and then notarized, and they're valid. We also use things like the 5 Wishes booklet, which I believe is considered legal and reliable in most states for people who want to express their wishes for when they pass. So Delaware Volunteer Legal Services, is on my speed dial for those folks who, again, need help with preparing advanced directives. And again, those are done usually free of charge for folks who can't afford to purchase those services.
And then for care management fees, I don't know how they do it, and everyone is very individual, but some of us do sliding scale. Again, the consults are free. A lot of us aren't gonna turn someone away that needs help because they can't afford the services.
We always have some pro bono clients, and we have to figure it out compared to the rest of our clients, because oftentimes they're the more time intensive ones. And so we have to be careful in terms of the acuity, but we always have about 2 pro bono clients. Oftentimes we're willing to give information on the phone when we realize that this is somebody that really isn't going to come in for a consult and when they really need one. I spend a lot of time referring clients to assisted living communities. There's some situations that it just appears, at least from the phone call, that they need one piece of information that's going to partly change their life. And if I can provide that, I'm happy to do that. When I feel like I really have to see a client, because sometimes what you hear and what you see are 2 different things, I will do it for a lesser rate, but I don't so much tell them it's a lesser rate as I just cut down what I charge. I do really believe that when we do things simply at a lesser rate because they don't think they can afford it, they don't value it as much. And that's happened enough times to me when, one of us has really gone out of our way to help somebody. And then it's like, oh, well, you did it for free. So it must not be that important. I'm not going to take your advice.
I know,
and then all their neighbors are calling you to get it done for free.
Yeah. Church friends. Yeah.
But there are so many people out there that can't afford it. I mean,
that's right.
Of us get calls. My mom assisted living, and you do the assessment and you make your recommendations on the most appropriate for the person, not who's really paying you for placing. Right. And then their income's $3,200 a month, like it really limits what they have. Like, it's amazing. It's a big, big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, a question came in and I don't remember who or when this was said, but the person is saying, thank you for this helpful information. Confusing, what do you mean medical care changed during COVID regarding whether or not to use life support and other methods? Did medical staff honor the patient's wishes? Not clear about what you mean. Do any of you remember who said that?
So I was saying that, and so many times a person will say, don't put me on life support. Just never, ever, ever put me on life support. And I don't want, if I'm found dead, I don't want artificial efforts made to bring me back to life. And a lot of people are really clear cut about that. But during COVID, a lot of people have recovered, but they were on the ventilator. They were intubated and on the ventilator. And so talking with your medical POA, talking to your doctor about it, you can always revoke that. But it has really changed how health professionals that understand the implications are talking about it and working with their clients. It's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, we talk about the ventilator used to be this thing. It was not a recovery tool, which is what we discovered it to be in COVID. And folks need to revisit their advanced directives
annually. Please look at it regularly and with any significant change.
Okay, let's see. We're almost to the top of the hour. I'm going to make this the last question because it's a good one from an elder law attorney, Elizabeth Gray, who says, what is your experience with Holst and Molst? Is it a good thing? Does it work? And if one of you could share that, I forget the acronym for what it means, Holst and Molst.
I'm a Molst train the trainer in Maryland. I got certified when it came out several years ago. So the Molst is the medical orders of life-sustaining treatment. That's what we use in Maryland. A lot of states vary. And to answer this question is yes, it's definitely beneficial. It's necessary, especially when it comes to code status. We are all a full code status unless stated otherwise. So if I go to a client's house and she goes, oh, I'm a DNR, I don't want to be resuscitated. You're not a DNR until you are. So you have to have the Molst in place. EMS will not honor it unless you have the Molst form. And it's a great discussion tool because advanced directives, and attorneys know this, often it puts you in 3 conditions, 3 stages. A lot of us, when we're older, don't fall into those stages: persistent vegetative state, terminal, and end stage. Sometimes it's failure to thrive, advanced dementia. It could be many things. So if we're not in one of those 3 conditions, I get to say with the Molst right now what I want or don't want if something happens to me. I love the Molst. I don't know about you guys.
In Delaware, it's called the DMOST. I've been in a situation where a client became unresponsive at home, and her husband was searching for the advanced directives. Because it wasn't a signed original, EMTs would not honor it. And so they worked on her for a good 20 minutes, and it was very upsetting. So having a DMOST or a Molst, Polst, whatever it is in your state, very important to have, and definitely keep it prominent where it can be seen. Put it on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been another great discussion. And, I've got an idea for the maybe next month, based on some of these questions in the last segment, is maybe we do sort of a combo episode with an elder law and aging life care, talking about topics together. I think that could be an interesting combination. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
anyways, well, you have been delightful, and I can tell by the comments in our chat that the audience has really got a lot out of this discussion. So just to remind everybody, I'll send everyone a recording. We'll have this in podcast format. I'll have contacts for our panel members. Thanks to Tribute and Maryland Relay again. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody online again soon, and hopefully live in the near future.
I'm ready.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thanks.